someone very, very close to me gave me feedback, which was, you're really good at making yourself seem small. He's like, well, you're a chemical and biological engineer. You've done all of this amazing work and you downplay all of it. And that doesn't help anyone.
This is Inspiring Women. I'm Lori McGraw, and I'm speaking with Amanda Rees, and she is the CEO and co-founder of Bold. We're here at the health conference, and it is busy and buzzy, and there is a lot going on. Amanda, I appreciate you taking time to speak to me. I want to talk to you about a couple things about Bold. So this is a digital platform that helps people who are wanting to prevent falls and improve their overall health. Let's just start at the founder's story. So this is something from a personal experience that you had caring for a loved one. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So my background was in engineering and research. I also had a background in movement. So I grew up a dancer. I taught dance. I taught yoga. I taught spin. And when I moved after college to the Bay Area, I moved in with my grandmother. And I was in my early 20s. She was in her late 80s at the time, and it started off really wonderfully. She had just stopped driving, and so I was helping her with going to the doctor's appointment, making meals, taking her to get her hair done on the weekends. But over the course of almost a decade of living with her, I found myself sort of thrust into a lot of caregiving responsibilities. I became her power of attorney for healthcare issues. She had stage 4 cancer. She had Lewy body dementia, and that journey was the hardest thing I think I've navigated to date.
Yeah.
But I always say that being a caregiver kind of radicalized how I thought about aging. And the fact that that was my experience, and it felt really clunky, really frustrating, and incredibly lonely. But we were in the center of Silicon Valley. We were, spitting distance from Sand Hill Road. It kind of clicked for me that there's a huge opportunity, especially looking forward at using technology to help people change the way they age. And so with falls and fall prevention, we identified, this is a big issue for payers and for Medicare, because Medicare spent as much on falls as cancer every year. But, 30 to 50% of those fall-related costs can be prevented.
Yep.
So we sort of took that opportunity and said, Medicare Advantage at the time was only about 30% of the population. Now it's over 50%. We could actually build a solution using tech to reach more people, to scale solutions that we know already work. And so we started with falls, and we've sort of built out a variety of movement programs for musculoskeletal pain, brain health, pelvic health. And now, even beyond that, we're looking more broadly at lifestyle medicine and how to help people change the way they age.
Amanda, you've taken, a very, very personal experience and developed an amazing, set of things that you're looking to do with Bold. Let's just go back a little bit. So, you're living with your grandmother, and you're doing that because you need a, free rent, right? That's a good thing, right?
Totally.
Did 10 years of caring for someone who's going through all the different life stages, and first of all, that is wonderful that you had that amazing decade, with a loved one in such a close and personal way. Did you think of yourself as a caregiver? When did that transition happen?
No, I thought of it as I have this awesome roommate who happens to be my grandmother, and we like to do things together, and it's really lovely, and it's, it worked out. We really enjoyed each other's company, and we're very, very close through that living together. I think the word caregiver, it came as she started to lose function and independence. And so I'd say aside from driving, she was very independent when I moved in. But, there were moments where she had a fall. She was out gardening. I'd come home. She'd have a goose egg. I'd ask what happened. She felt tons of shame around it. She stopped gardening. She became more depressed. And then I found myself really struggling with how to stay resilient. And, I wasn't working in healthcare at the time. I didn't really have language. I didn't really know. I had one really good friend who was also caregiving for a family member. And so we kind of had, text and phone call support of man, this is hard. Or doesn't it suck when you have to go to the ER?
Yeah. And, what I love about what you're building with Bold is that lived experience that you have with your grandmother. I mean, we all have experiences with our elder, whether it's parents or grandparents, and the humanity that is core to what you're trying to drive forward with Bold. I mean, we can talk about the numbers that falls are more expensive than the cost of cancer just in aggregate for a payer. But the goose egg on your grandmother's forehead and the shame that comes with that. The number of people I know dealing with, elder people in their family where they don't want to talk about the issue that they have because it's just like it's embarrassing. And so how do you actually do that humanizing? Because as you grow, it's harder to do more than a one-on-one interaction. How do you keep that humanity front and center?
Yeah, maybe I'll start with the one-to-one, because I think that the voice and the messaging and the way we communicate with our members and our patients at Bold really stems from having deep, deep empathy. It's one of our values at the company. Nobody wants to feel like they're losing independence or they're being bubble wrapped or they're fragile.
Right.
And I think that there is sort of maybe a widely accepted but sort of flawed trope of like, oh, I see you're shaky and more unstable. You sit there, I'll go do things for you. Or let me bubble wrap, let me take things away from you.
Yep.
And actually research would show that giving people challenge and encouraging them to keep pushing, that's what actually restores. And so I think there's a story and an opportunity to say, you can build your balance and strength at any age. We have partnerships where the average age is 81. That is really unusual in tech to say the average user for this relationship we have with an ACO might be 81 years old, but they're using a tech-first solution. And they're loving it. They're loving it because that class, that guidance, that instructor is saying, okay, I know you can do it. Let me meet you where you are. So it can be a seated 10-minute, 5 minutes at a time sort of session, but we're going to show you how much you're capable of doing rather than say, well, stop doing this, stop doing that. Because I think it's that loss that actually has a huge link to mental health and loneliness and isolation. And
huge. I mean, I have an older sister who has Parkinson's disease, and that is something that is very slow moving, and things have gone away. So, whether she can drive or not drive, and those early conversations were devastating. And it wasn't about the symptom; it was about the loss. And so we changed the narrative, and said, okay, look, let's talk about being safe out on the road, and what do you need? And hey, I'm going to hire the hottest Uber driver on the face of the planet for you, because that's what's most important. And I just think that narrative of the challenge that you're thinking about, first of all, again, that's humanness in care, and something that you should be really, really proud of. I'm excited for you with Bold. But Amanda, maybe just to pivot a little bit, you also, as you build this company, you've been intentional in terms of building out a leadership team that is competent, effective, very female in there. You also have a cap table that is unusual in terms of the amount of investment that you're receiving, with some power players on that cap table also happen to be female. So what's going on there? That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I think honestly, some of it is, for us, when we're looking for a partner, an investor, or a leader, I think deep connection with our mission is really important. And I think it's not really a coincidence that women tend to be the frontline caregivers for a lot of families, and they see it, they understand. That's a very real problem that they've confronted and addressed before. I also think that I look for investors that have been CEOs or founders before. And so that I would say is also really important around sort of their lived experience and their trust. I think that's another through line of, it's my first time building a company, but I can find advisors, mentors, investors who have done it before. One of, our Series A was led by a group, Rethink Impact, which is the largest fund that is dedicated to investing in women. They're generalist. It's not just healthcare companies. And I would say there's an incredible community because living in the Bay Area and now in Los Angeles, I don't meet as many female founders, and I've found it really inspiring and incredible to sort of connect with the other women in that portfolio too.
So for other founders that are out there, I mean, it is true, there's not enough women founders who are out there, and there certainly aren't enough who are receiving funding. We know that the numbers are still well around 2% of funding going to female founders. It goes up if you have a male counterpart, and by the way, any way to get the funding, you should get it. So how How did you go about asking for it? Because one of the secrets, if you will, it's very hard to ask for funding. It's hard to do those 100 pitches before you get to your first yes. There's all kinds of ways we can go into that, but this isn't your background in terms of, starting companies. How did you go from being a yoga instructor, a dancer, a movement person,
Yeah.
to now being an accomplished CEO, founder, raising funds as you have?
Yeah. So along the way, I did work at a family office. So I had the chance to work on sort of supporting grants and investments being made in a different sector, in the energy sector. But I do think that it's around communicating a big vision, because especially to get people excited, it can't be a point solution. It needs to be something like, we want to transform or help people change the way they age.
Yep.
Second is, I think you just have to do it. And like the first pitch is going to be way worse than like the 12th or 100th pitch. And so part of it is like, you just got to rip off the Band-Aid, and you can't expect that you're going to start from a place of nailing it the first time. And then I also think that it was helpful for me to honestly see a lot of friends that were just saying like, okay, I'm going to start. And one of the things I hear sometimes from female founders that reach out is, I'm not sure, I want to start something, I'm not sure. Should I go get an extra degree or do this thing before I'm ready? And that's probably the thing where I'm like, don't delay.
Don't.
If you have the itch and you want to do it, do it. And like, you have to be comfortable that it may not, it's almost certainly not going to go the way you expect it to.
Yeah.
But to me, the best data is once you start doing it, you're going to see how people respond, who gets excited, what the market says. And then it's really around how fast you can sort of take those incoming signals and incorporate it to adapt and move and sort of build towards what makes sense.
So let's go to the Wayback Machine. So that first pitch where you weren't practiced and you didn't nail it, and it's very hard and it's scary to go out there and sort of say, hey, I've got this great idea of something I want to do, to the 50th pitch. Sort of like, what's the difference? And why did you do pitch number 5? That's probably like the hardest one, where you kind of suck at it still, but you got to get so much better.
Yeah, I think that part of it is it's a dialogue, right? You're not just giving a one-way TED Talk or presentation. Yep. It is around what questions come up. And so I think it's the questions that you haven't anticipated that investor says, oh, well, have you thought about this? Or, well, what if this happens? What's going to be your response? And I think it's almost about that objection handling or questions. It helps you refine your idea to be like, oh, that was a good question. And now I think over time you get better at anticipating, well, what might those set of questions be and how can you do it? And I would say, reaching out to other people in your network or cold emails to people can be incredibly powerful. So don't be afraid of trying to get inspiration. There's also so many resources online at this day and age.
Yeah,
I can just truly point someone to, well, here's what really great investors have put out. And, because folks are on social media, you can really get a feel for who an investor is and what they care about. And if you end up flat-footed because you didn't maybe do a little research to understand what they might care about, what they might ask about, that's going to look way worse than just being really prepared. So I do think preparation matters.
Yeah.
But then it's, being open to the surprise along the way and getting stronger over time.
For you, with all of those resources and great advice that you just gave being available to everyone, what was like a moment along the way that made you become so much better? Was it a bad presentation? Was it somebody giving you really honest advice in a way that landed in the moment? Give us an example.
I will. Someone very, very close to me gave me feedback that I will, always think back to, which was, you're really good at making yourself seem small. What does that mean?
What does that mean?
He's like, well, you've accomplished, you're a chemical and biological engineer. You've, done all of this amazing work. You've, in policy and investing and grant making, and you sort of downplay all of it. And that doesn't help anyone. It definitely doesn't help you. And so it's almost ironic that your company is called Bold, and you're sort of taking this approach that makes you seem so much less bold than you are when you're, just one-on-one having a beer and talking to someone. And I think that was definitely a feedback for me around how do I really pull through my authentic self, and how do I not try to sort of dim or adapt how I present. And that was very early in the process. I'm like, okay, great. I only need to be given that feedback once. And
That is
we're gonna
awesome. Okay, here I
make
am.
use
Here
of it.
comes Amanda.
Yeah.
She is bold. So as we think about, this audience for Inspiring Women is a lot of younger entrepreneurs, female leaders, as well as women who have very accomplished careers, who continue to reinvent, push new boundaries, all of those things. So I would say, Amanda, you're at the earlier stage of building an important company. If you think, let's maybe just talk about the company first, but if you look ahead for the next couple of years, what do you dream about in terms of what's possible?
Oh gosh, there's a lot. So we are in the midst of a really exciting moment just from the changes that are happening in technology and innovation. And I am really excited around the opportunity for AI, when done ethically, clinically rigorous, to help us really understand and transform the way we age. So AI is really good at taking complex things with many different factors that might exceed what any one person or team of experts might be able to address. But I don't hear a lot of people talking, same as tech, often was built for those maybe under 50 historically.
Yep.
I think AI tends to see, very high adoption. And there's definitely older adults and seniors that are using AI. But I think from a research angle and from a product building and from an experience, really saying technology is only as good as the sort of products that people build around it and the experiences and the thought and intention, and also the data that goes into it. And so wanting to say, can we make sure that aging doesn't get left behind and Medicare members don't get left behind when it comes to this new opportunity in technology? And so there's some things that we're working on sort of at that intersection.
That's awesome. So last question, and that is, what is one thing that you've learned, at the helm as a CEO and a leader that other women don't need to learn? Because what advice do you have for them?
Oh gosh. To me, it has entirely been around the people. I feel so lucky and grateful that I get to pick the team I work with and pick, have choice in building this company. And the DNA of the people that you hire and that you work with and you spend time with is the DNA of your company. And one of my investors told me that, and I think it is so true. And it's just been really incredible to see the relationships of who joins you along the way, because it's going to be starting a company, building a company, scaling it is hard. And so finding the right people and getting better at that as a skill of knowing who's really in it with you and who can sort of walk that longer journey is probably the thing I would say people maybe don't always put as much thought into. It's opportunistic, or it's, this on paper it feels right, but maybe there's that little gut instinct of, I'm not sure if this is the person when things are tough. And so I would say, for me, the metric there has been folks who are in it with you when the timing is hard, when the challenges ahead look really big and scary.
Because there's always going to be a time when it's hard.
Yeah, and you don't want the fair weather. And I think that's true for investors. It's true for your founding team. It's true for every single person you have join. Is like, how do you really build that resilience and that grit into the DNA of the company?
Yeah, well, I think that's fantastic advice, and I can't wait to see what's next in terms of what you do with Bold. This has been a fantastic Inspiring Women conversation. I've been speaking with Amanda Rees, and Amanda, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Laurie.